Good morning, or depending on when you're listening to this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and I was always told I had a voice for radio, so I've made a podcast all about the Pokémon trading card game, and you're listening to PTCG Radio. Now, this week we're, I suppose, quite a straightforward agenda this week. We're going to talk about a whole bunch of new cards and some other interesting pieces of news. I'm going to tell you about the UK regional that happened this past weekend, and then I'm going to get on out of here. Now, it is worth a quick reminder that the vast majority of tournaments have been happening in places like the US so far this year have been in the expanded format, and the UK has been operating pretty much in the standard format. So to be honest, ladies and gentlemen, if you're into standard format information, this is the place you should be coming. Now, a little shameless plug for myself as we get going, but again, if you're into standard format, you want to get some information for upcoming city championships that may be in the new format, quite frankly, you should want this. Now, on my YouTube channel, which can handily be found at youtube.com/PTCGRadio, you will find a whole bunch of standard format games. Now, I've just finished uploading the league challenges from Norwich and from Sheffield, and yesterday I started uploading the regionals games. We've got a whole bunch of regionals games, and you know, regionals is when people really step it up. They play the decks they didn't want to play during league challenges. It's where everybody comes out. I mean, Huddersfield regionals, where the first games are coming from, that had something like 92 players, and something like 20 of them had played at Worlds in the recent past. It is quite silly. So round one is already up, showing 2 Worlds players in an Aromatisse Giratina mirror match. Round 2 is going to be going up today, and it's going to be showing Nick Pierce and Tamao Cameron, who have both been at Worlds very recently, Tamao many times. And it's going to be Lucario Bats against Manectric Bats. And we've got round 3 with another pair of Worlds players, showing Wailord Walls against Lucario Bats. That's going to be coming up maybe today, maybe tomorrow at the absolute latest. That video is already done and ready to go. And there's a whole bunch of other rounds coming. So if you want standard format games to have a look at, check out youtube.com/PTCGRadio. And the usual reminders, if you want to email me, you can do so at ptcgradio@hotmail.co.uk. If you want to find me on Twitter, you can find me at The Wassy. You can get in touch with me that way. Or just look at my mindless rambling about Pokemon, the NFL, and companies I hate. And video games. A lot of video game love there at the moment. Speaking of which, Fallout 4. It's genuinely difficult to put down Fallout 4 for long enough to come and make a podcast. And if you want a complete archive of the podcast, you can find that at ptcgradio.wordpress.com. Right, there goes the intro stuff, so let's get into it with some new cards. Now, an interesting thing happened on Japanese... Although it happened at last weekend's Battle Fiesta tournament in Japan, Pokemon Card Laboratory presented players with 7 Pokemon cards, asked them to vote for which Pokemon they'd like to see a break evolution. Now, if you want to see the picture, it's up on Pokebeach.com. I'm not 100%. It looks like in 7th place we had Hippowdon, in 6th place we had Magnezone, in 5th place we had some fairy thing whose name escapes me, nobody cares. In 4th place, we had Octillery, but let's go for the top 3. In 3rd place, Aromatisse. 2nd place, Crobat. And 1st place, Typhlosion. Now, on the one hand, yes. On the other hand, with the rules we've got for break Pokemon at the moment, why is anyone voting for a Stage 2 break Pokemon? It's going to be an unplayable Stage 3. I'd like to see an Octillery break personally, or an Aromatisse break, because you're already talking good playable Stage 1s of abilities people are going to use. You start chucking in a break evolution that you can pop in on top of an already playable card that you're going to want to use. Now I'm interested. But I suppose people are already playing Crobat, but still, a Stage 2... a break evolution from a Stage 2, I'm not buying it. I'm just not. Maybe Whimsicott the Fairy? I don't know, I'll look it up at some point and I'll remind myself what it is. Speaking of break Pokemon, I got a couple of interesting messages recently regarding Evo Soda and Wally. I suppose I should make this nice and clear. I did tell you on, maybe it was last week's podcast, that the official Pokemon trading card game rulebook has been updated, and it basically says that these break cards work as regular evolution cards. So yeah, Evo Soda will work, Wally will work. They'll work in the same way evolutions work. Wally allows you to search for a card that evolves from the active from your Pokemon, doesn't have to be active, and put it on that Pokemon, even if it's gone down that turn, and that'll work for break Pokemon. So to take Zoroark as an example, you can go turn 1 Wally into Zoroark, turn 2 break, or you can go turn 2 manually evolve into Zoroark, and then play Wally to get Zoroark breakout on top of it. Both of those would be options. Now, I haven't seen an official ruling, but Pokemon Break work like regular evolutions. Now, you obviously can't use Rare Candy to turn Zorua into Zoroark Break, but that's because Zoroark isn't a Stage 2, so you shouldn't be able to use a Rare Candy on it. Other than that, Evo Soda and Wally should work just like normal. Now, there is a mythical Pokemon collection Mew bot coming in February. Mew EX was the last Mew card we had, if I remember correctly, in Legendary Treasures. As part of Radiant Collection, it being an alternate art reprint of the Dragon's Exalted Mew EX. And it's coming out on February the 22nd with a holo promo of Mew, a Mew pin for those of you that are collecting the pins, a PTCGO card, and... not a glitch, a dramatic silence, 2 Pokemon Trading Card Game Generations booster packs. I don't know what this means. Are they going to be reprint cards from sets? I mean, that's what Generations generally implies. And let's face it, next year is Pokemon's 20th anniversary, which makes me feel old, because I clearly remember the 15th anniversary stuff they did for the 15th anniversary. Maybe it's cards from the Break starter packs, those Japanese sets I told you about that were very, very similar to the original Pokemon trading card game cards from way back in the day. I told you that Japan, for that little set, was actually changing the back of the card back to how they used to be rather than how they are now. Either way, it's all a little bit interesting. Don't really know what it means, what it's about. Sorry, ladies and gentlemen. All I know is that it's there, and that's about the most I can tell you. So we've got what I would consider to be 3 very interesting pieces of news today. But first, I'm going to start you off with the less interesting new cards and news. So there is going to be a Honedge. It's terrible. Not even recognizing it. There's a Doublade. It's terrible. Not even recognizing it. But there is an Edgeslash has been revealed. So let's have a look at the Edgeslash. And they've started doing this lately. They've started kind of leaking the basics and stage 1s, telling you that the stage 2 is coming. They did it with Mamoswine, and they did it with Greninja and Greninja Break. Speaking of which, the more I think about Greninja, the more I kind of want to skip straight to the tournaments with the May set. I just want to build Greninja and play it over and over again. Because I'm a fan of Greninja, and it just looks like the most fun deck I've seen in a long time, to be honest with you. It looks like how Vespiquen looked, but it looks like it might actually be good. And I've checked through my binder this past week. I've got enough Greninja X and Y, so we good. Edgeslash, I'm afraid it's not particularly good. Now, there's an interesting attack for free colourless energy. Place damage counters on each of your opponent's Pokemon equal to the number of damage counters they already have on them. So each Pokemon that has 4 damage counters gets 4 more. If they've got 3, they get 3 more. I just can't think of when you would actually want to use that in a deck. I mean, you might be putting the odd damage counter around here or there, but really, how many damage counters are you going to be putting down to make this something that you're going to want to use on a regular basis? I ain't buying it. If it was a stage 1 for a double colourless would be pushing it. A stage 2 for free colourless, I'm not accepting it, I'm afraid. And it's got an attack, Megaton Slash, 2 Psychic, 2 colourless. Now remember, it is a Psychic Pokemon, so both the attack costs can be brought down by 1 by popping a Dimension Valley in play. 100 damage and 10 damage to each of 2 of your opponent's bench Pokemon. It ain't good, ladies and gentlemen. It's just not particularly good. I'm sorry, I'm not buying it. It's just not looking great. And that makes me sad. I want it to be good. It would make me happy if it were good. But it ain't good. And I'm reliably informed it's the first time there's been an attack that doubles all of your opponent's damage counters. So, okay, almost 20 years in, as I just told you, getting a new kind of attack, that's kind of cool, but it's garbage. Speaking of garbage, Stantler. Now, I'm lying, Stantler's not entirely garbage. 90 HP, colourless Pokemon, weak to fighting. It's very similar to Miltank. For 1 colourless energy, flip a coin if heads your opponent is confused, or your opponent's active Pokemon. Confusion on a coin flip is terrible. But the good attack, big charge, 30 damage, 50 more if you've got a Mega Evolved Pokemon on your bench. So in the same way that Miltank does 80 for 1 energy if you've got a stage 2. Stantler does 80 for a double colourless energy, still only 1 energy, if you've got a Mega Pokemon on your bench. It's far from good, but, you know, in a Mega Evolution deck, if you're playing DCE anyway and you want a non-EX attacker to start doing a bit of work, you can do worse. So, we've seen some new cards revealed, including a whole bunch of new EXs. So, let's roll with it, but I assure you, ladies and gentlemen, this is going to be fairly quick. There's nothing really to get excited about. Now, Splash Energy, attach it to water Pokemon, and we know we've had all of these. We've had Mystery Energy for Fairy and Burning Energy for Fire and all of this, but we haven't had a Water Energy yet. If the water Pokemon this card is attached to is knocked out by damage from an opponent's attack, return all Pokemon cards to the owner's hand instead of discarding them. Kind of like Rescue Energy. Discard all other cards attached. So, I don't know, say you're in Expanded and you wouldn't even want that. I don't know, say you're playing a Mega Glalie deck, you put a Splash Energy on Mega Glalie, and if Mega Glalie gets knocked out, you get both Glalie and the Mega, but you wouldn't get the Spirit Link back and you wouldn't get any energy back. And I'm going to say the same thing I've said about all of these Special Energy cards. Special Energy is very, very easy to get rid of nowadays. Very easy to get rid of. We've got your Xerosic and your Team Flegrunt and your Crushing Hammer and your Enhanced Hammer, and we've got the promo Jirachi that everybody's going crazy over at the moment. So, you know, it's just, you need a really, really good reason to play it. Now, Flash Energy has started seeing a little bit of play. Not much, but it started seeing a little bit of play in Manectric decks. It takes away your weakness. Similarly, we have seen a lot of play from Strong Energy, because it adds 20 damage. What people have basically said is this: I am willing to pay extra. Not pay extra, what am I talking about? I am willing to take the risk associated with playing Special Energy if the, I suppose, benefit gained is good enough. Flash Energy it is. Strong Energy it is, but they're really the only two. And I don't think Splash Energy, or whatever it's called when it comes over to an English-speaking market, is really going to change much about this. I'd quite like to be wrong, to be honest. It'd be kind of cool to be wrong about this. But I just don't buy it, quite frankly. I don't think it's going to be particularly good. Prove me wrong, Pokemon. Prove me wrong. Other cards, we've got a Suicune with the ability Wind Protection. As long as it's active, prevent all effects of your opponent's attacks except damage to each of your Pokemon. So this is, and again, it's not getting rid of damage, but it's getting rid of everything else. So it's getting rid of any special conditions, and it's getting rid of, what are we talking about? So we're getting rid of special conditions here, and, you know, getting rid of energy attached to any of your Pokemon. So something like Shuppet's attack that discards an energy attached to your Pokemon, that wouldn't happen. However, remember its only effects done to your Pokemon. So, for instance, your, Seismitoad EX stopping you playing trainer cards, that would still totally work because that is an effect on the player, not on the Pokemon. Oh, there's a Froakie. To be fair, it's got paralysis on a coin flip, which it's a nice desperation play, and it's about the most you can expect from a a basic which is going to evolve into a stage 2. Now, there's also a range of Evolution Battle Strengthening sets coming out. On December the 26th, nice Boxing Day present, these are in Japan, obviously. And there are going to be 16 predetermined cards, which will be released as promos if they're unique to the package. So, you got a whole bunch of exclusives, including a whole bunch of EXs. But we're going to run through them fairly quickly, because they ain't particularly good. So, Leafeon EX. For a grass and a colourless, 30 damage, flip a coin. If heads, it does 60. Not very good. 2 grass and a colourless, 90 damage. If there's a stadium play, it does 120 and you heal 30. Even so, ladies and gentlemen, not a particularly good attack. Not one I'm particularly enamoured with. Sorry, Leafeon, you suck. And anyone that's been waiting for a Leafeon EX, carry on waiting, quite frankly. There is Immunizer, a trainer card that allows you to put 2 grass Pokemon from your discard pile to your hand. It's not particularly good. Now, one of my it's never been kind of in the top 6. Remember, you got to have a top 6 in Pokemon for obvious reasons. It's never been one of my main Pokemon, but a Pokemon for whom I've always had a soft spot is Golem. I like Golem. He's not done very well. Now, I know Canadian Nationals was won by Golem deck a few years ago, but he's not gotten a lot of love in the TCG. He's getting an EX, and it's terrible. It isn't as good as Lucario. It isn't as good as Machamp. In Expanded, it's not as good as Landorus. Keep looking. Unfortunately, no one's... Groudon, it's not as good as Groudon. It would struggle to make the top 5 fighting EXs. 2 fighting and a colourless, 80 damage. Free energy, 80 damage. Now, Lucario EX does 100 for free energy, and it's got 2 other attacks which are better. For free fighting and a colourless, you can do 180 damage and 60 to yourself. Hang on a second, it can one-hit KO EXs. Why is it bad? Hard to accelerate fighting energy. You put yourself down to 120 HP to do so. Remember, there are tools and stuff which can stop that. Was it Protection Cube, which stops your own attacks hurting you? Came out in Flash Fire. No one ever plays it. I think it's something like that. It's just not good, I'm afraid, ladies and gentlemen. There's a Ninetales EX, which allows you to, for a discard a fire energy, draw 3 cards. You know what else does stuff like that? Fiery Torch and Scorched Earth. Now, I know they get 2 cards rather than 3, but they don't make you give up your attack for the turn. For a fire and 3 colourless, 130 damage if Tails discard a fire energy. Yeah. It's not as good as stuff like Camerupt. Jolteon EX. For a lightning energy, 30 damage, not affected by weakness, resistance, or other effects. Play Manectric. Or for a lightning double colourless, 70 damage, and it cannot be damaged by any basic Pokemon during your opponent's next turn. This one has potential. Now, you'd need something like a Mega Manectric to kind of set it up to get all the energy on it in time. But getting complete immunity from basic Pokemon, this could work. This could actually be a viable Pokemon. Certainly, if Manectric decks are still being played, playing this as a one-off, I can think of much worse things to do. Not amazing, but doable. Clement, a supporter, or Clement, or however you want to pronounce it, search your deck for 4 lightning energy and put them in your hand. Like a fisherman, but from your deck. If Magnezone ever becomes a thing, this is awesome. Otherwise, it ain't particularly good. Remember, Magnezone lets you attach as many lightning energies as you like per turn, so being able to drag 4 out the deck and put them on straight away would be very, very useful. Although... yeah, I mean, we did have a similar card a little while ago that nobody played, even in decks like Blastoise, that let you search for loads of energy. But we didn't, we were in a more supporter draw-heavy format than we're in now. Nowadays, you can just use stuff along the lines of, your Shaman and your Trainer's Mail and your Acrobike instead. There is a Vaporeon EX for a water and a colourless, 30 damage, heal 30. Meh. For 2 water and a colourless, 130 damage, minus 10 for each damage counter on this Pokemon. Yeah, it's not the best water EX. You know what also does 130 for free energy? Seismitoad. I think that pretty much proves my point. And it can attack for 1 energy attachment, and it blocks trainers. You know, I could keep going, but I think I've made my point. And weirdly, I didn't see this coming. Meowstick EX. Ability Shadow Ear. Once during your turn, if it's your active Pokemon, you may move 1 damage counter from one of your Pokemon to one of your opponent's Pokemon. Now, it's only 1 per turn, but that can be removing a damage counter that lets you live for an extra turn. It can be moving that 1 damage counter that allows you to get a KO. This could be really good. If it would work from the bench, I could see this seeing play, but it doesn't. It's got to be active. That's all right. If it's got a good attack, it will still see play. 60 damage for a Psychic and a Colourless, not affected by weakness or resistance. Playable. I kind of wish it was affected by weakness, to be honest. Because let's not forget that you put a Dimension Valley down and it's just 1 Psychic. 60 for 1 energy while you get to move damage counters to your opponent. It's not terrible. It's only got 160 HP, which is on the low side for an EX. But it's not terrible. But it doesn't hit for weakness. It only does 60 damage. And it still is only moving 1 EX. There's also been revealed some Japanese blisters, which just give you alternate art for both the Mewtwo EXs. Because, you know, we've only got 3 versions of each Mewtwo EX at the moment. The regular, the full art, and the ultra rare. So clearly we need an alternate art version of them. Can anyone say coming in promo tins? There's one other card which I should mention, Olympia, a supporter. Switch your active Pokemon with one of your bench Pokemon, then heal 30 from the new benched Pokemon. So it's kind of like a switch and a potion in one. Is it particularly good? I mean, to be honest, it's not as good as AZ. AZ acts as a switch and allows you to completely heal the outgoing Pokemon. Does make you discard cards from it, but I still would take that over most. So not great, but okay. Couple of cards to think about, but there are 3 exciting pieces of news. Let's get to them now. Firstly, Alakazam's back, baby. Alakazam is going to be coming out in Japan's 10th set, Awakening of Psychic Kings. It's coming out in Japan on March the 18th. This will be our May set, coming out just in time for Nationals and Worlds. Of course, depending on when your Nationals are. So we're going to have a Breakthrough is our November set. Our February set is going to be our Rage of the Broken Skies with Gyarados and Greninja and all of that. This will be our May set. So we're 6 months away from this. It's going to feature Alakazam EX and Mega Alakazam EX. Now, we haven't seen Alakazam much. The last time he came around was Alakazam 4. This was back in Rising Rivals, which was, you know, it had a lot of trainers Pokemon in. So Alakazam 4 came from the Elite Four, and it had an Alakazam 4 Level X. The last regular Alakazam we had came out in Mysterious Treasures in 2007, but there was no Kadabra. There was an Abra with an Ultra Evolution attack, which allowed you to evolve straight into Alakazam. Why no Kadabra? Well, according to PokeBeach.com, he's been shelved in the trading card game due to a lawsuit with Uri Geller. Now, he's a magician that was famous for being friends with Michael Jackson. And also, apparently, he can bend spoons of his mind, except he clearly can't, because that's not possible. Sorry if that sounds cynical and boring. Now, Kadabra is based on him, and his Japanese name does pay homage to him. And back in 2000, Uri Geller saw a dark Kadabra card from Team Rocket, which was the expansion Team Rocket. And in Japan, this was known as Evil Kadabra, except it was essentially called Evil Uri Geller. Now, if you saw a card saying Evil Your Name, now personally, if I saw a Pokemon card called Evil Ross Gilbert, I'd go, oh my god, that's the best thing ever, and I would try and make any deck out of it whatsoever. Uri Geller is less into Pokemon than us and seems to have less of a sense of whimsy and fun, so he's sued, which is a little bit sad. The last Kadabra we had was in 2002 for Skyridge. And since then, it's been 13 years we haven't seen a Kadabra. Like I've said, we've had an Abra and an Alakazam with no Kadabra. We've had an Alakazam 4, which was a basic card. It was it's kind of like an EX in the day, but, only gave up one prize. It was a trainer's Pokemon. And we're now seeing an Alakazam EX. And this, of course, helps because Alakazam EX will be a basic, there'll be a Mega, which is an evolution from said basic, and it means that there need be no Kadabra. And that's an interesting news story as far as I'm concerned. No figure on what it's going to be, but still, that's kind of interesting. If you're a particular fan of Kadabra, don't get your hopes up, ladies and gentlemen. It ain't coming anytime soon. But if you're an Alakazam fan, hopefully this bad boy is going to be playable. Because it's an awful lot of hooey over nothing if he isn't. There's also going to be a Mega Raldino EX battle deck. We'll see what happens when it comes out. And a Zygarde EX Perfect battle deck. Zygarde is the Pokemon that hasn't quite been revealed yet, not properly. Now, weirdly, this is going to be Zygarde's first appearance in the TCG, but he's not the face of X and Y10, and it generally happens that Pokemon, like Rayquaza, he's going to be an Emerald, so in the spring set, there's an Emerald set based around Rayquaza. If we were looking for a new Pokemon game with Zygarde, i.e. Pokemon Z, we all know Pokemon Z's coming at some point. If that was coming soon, then we would expect to see a spring set based around Zygarde, but that hasn't happened. Now the exciting news. There's a really interesting new tool that's been revealed, Burst Balloon, and this is going to be in our February set, X and Y9. It's basically Rocky Helmet, but for 6 damage counters, or, to put it another way, it is, Rock Guard, that's what it was called, the Ace spec, except it's not an Ace spec, and it gets discarded at the end of your turn. So you attach the tool to your Pokemon, your opponent hits you, they take 6 damage counters, but it's discarded at the end of your opponent's turn. Now, I'm thinking something like Greninja. You're already spreading 6 damage counters with Greninja Break, maybe spreading 3 damage counters with Greninja XY, and if they're hitting you, that's potentially 150 damage from one Pokemon in one turn without attacking. And sure, your opponent can not attack into it. Okay, they've got to waste a Lysandra or an Escape Rope just to get a KO. Or they've got to give up an attack for a turn. This is going to be good. Now, it's a bit of a shame it only lasts for one turn, but that makes it a little bit balanced. Quite frankly, ladies and gentlemen, I could see this leading to a real rise in people playing Escape Rope. Nobody's going to put Burst Balloon on 2 Pokemon. That's ludicrous, because it can only possibly work on one, because they'll both get discarded at the end of the following turn. So I like the fact that, it's going to force people to maybe play something like Escape Rope to attack anything else. I think this is kind of cool. And in probably weirdest news of the week, Garbodor's coming back. And it's almost an exact reprint. Now, it is coming back. It was shown on the TV. I don't know exactly where it's coming from. Presumably from X and Y9. But it's got the ability Garbotoxin. And it's exactly the same. You attach your tool to Garbodor, and all of the abilities go away. Although the attack is now worse, Psychic and Free Colourless for 60, Poisoned and Confused. No one's going to ever attack with it. Now, here's what's kind of cool about this. I don't know if anyone's going to play this. Now, and this might sound controversial. Please don't hate me for saying this. Most people in the UK and the US haven't spent much time playing in the standard format. And I've seen an awful lot. I replied to, and I don't do this very often, and I know better than to do this. I replied to a post on Burbank City Gym, the Facebook group this week about this, saying that Garbodor is not going to be as relevant as it used to be. And there followed a number of, I don't want to say idiotic, but not very well thought out comments. So somebody said, well, Garbodor's not going to become obsolete. Well, I didn't say obsolete, I said less relevant than it used to be. And then going off on all this, that, and the other, here's my reasoning. And I really should save my opinions for the podcast because, you got to go to a lot more effort to argue against me in the podcast. We've got Silent Lab and we've got Hex Maniac. Garbodor is a Stage 1 Pokemon to whom you have to attach a tool, which means that you've got an absolute best case scenario. I'm assuming you're not playing Wally for Garbodor because nobody is. Best case, and if you're going to play Wally for Garbodor, you might as well just play Hex Maniac. So you're looking at turn 2 Trainer Lock, so you are guaranteeing your opponent has a turn where they can use all of their abilities. You're having a catcher target on your bench. Let's say your opponent Lissandres it up and then plays a startling Megaphone. Oh, gutted. You're now stuck in the active. It's got a retreat cost of 3. It takes up a lot of space in your deck. It only works if you get a tool down. And it's easily countered. So if during my turn I want to get abilities back, all I need to do is play a Xerosic or Startling Megaphone. And yes, I know that Garbodor is often paired with Seismitoad, but remember that deck was really, really good because of Hypnotoxic Laser, which doesn't exist in Standard at the moment. Now, I'm not saying it's going to be a bad deck, I'm saying it's lost one of its best tricks. So, yeah, there's all of that going on. What's the alternative? Hex Maniac. And if you haven't played in the Standard format a lot, I understand that you're probably not as familiar with this, and I don't blame you. But, maybe trust the people that have played in Standard a lot. What's happened in a lot, and it's happened in Expanded as well, because I saw articles about regional championships where this was being talked about. People are making decks where it's essentially, I'm going to have a ridiculous trainer draw engine with roller skates and acro bike and, a few supporters here and there and trainer's mail and all of that, and Hex Maniac. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to play Hex Maniac every single turn. And I don't have to worry about Trainer Lock, because the only Trainer Lock that can get going on turn 1, or, really early, I know Toad can, but, you still got to have at least a turn to get going, is Trevenant and Vileplume, both of which lock trainers due to abilities, which get turned off from Hex Maniac. So, the Night March, their Night March did quite well at the UK Regionals this week, and I believe all, or at least a vast majority, of the Night March that did well at this tournament played a ridiculous trainer engine, 4 Shaman, and a whole bunch of Hex Maniac. Obviously, you play your Shaman before you play Hex Maniac. And essentially, the way it worked was, I'm going to sit here and do consistent damage with Night March. You are going to be ability locked every single turn of the game. Good luck. And that's it. That's how it happens. It's just the way it goes. And it's a very valid thing. Now, Silent Lab hasn't been seeing much play, but if you really want to turn off something like Shaman, Silent Lab does the job as well. Now, obviously, Silent Lab's a bit of a pain, and you might not want to play it against some decks and it turns off your own Shaman. I know you can put it down at the end of your turn, but, or, and it can be turned off by your opponent just playing a counter stadium. My point is, if you really want to go ability locking in the Standard format, go Hex Maniac. You can play 3 or 4 Hex Maniac, 4 VS Seeker. If you can have 7 or 8 turns in a row of Hex Maniac. And you know what, ladies and gentlemen? That's probably going to be enough. I'm sure I told you on last week's podcast. At Huddersfield Regionals, I played against Rick Cherry, a Rayquaza player, and both games, I was Hex Maniac for the first 5 turns. It's ludicrous. It's utterly ludicrous. And that's why Garbodor's not going to be particularly good. You're already playing 4 VS Seeker. So do you want to put 3 spots in your deck, or do you want to put 6 or 7 for Garbodor, including the tools? Do you want to just be able to play a supporter, or do you want to have to get a stage 1 with a tool attached? Do you want complete and utter unbreakable ability lock, or do you want to give your opponent a way to get around it? Now, obviously, there are upsides to Garbodor. The main upside of Garbodor is, well, I can play another supporter instead. Okay. That's why you play the trainer engine. The reason not to play a ridiculous trainer engine is because of Vileplume and or Trevenant. And you know what, ladies and gentlemen? Hexmaniac turns them off. As always, this Garbodor thing, it's the kind of thing that will make people have disagreements, questions, comments, queries, quibbles, and the such. So get yourself over to Twitter at the Wassy or email me at ptcgradio@hotmail.co.uk and, tell me I'm wrong. And the good news is we're just about to start talking about the regionals. I've just had some Facebook messages from the lovely Charlie Powell telling me about his interesting deck with which he came second at the regional. So that's a nice kind of, I think, quite a nice segue, if you will, into this particular part. So we were at Sutton Coldfield Regionals. I believe there was about 100 Masters. And again, people poo-poo the UK and they go, well, it's the UK, it's easy, 100-person regionals. What I would say is the concentration. The UK is not a very large country. If you've got the ability to stay in a hotel and use the trains or a car, you can essentially go to all the regionals. There's the upside. The downside is all of the world's players go to every regional. So if we look at the top 8 here, I think maybe 2 of them haven't gone to Worlds. I would be genuinely surprised, and I'm not joking about this, I would be genuinely surprised if any of these 8 players didn't go to Worlds this year. So you are contending every tournament with 15, 20, current or recent Worlds competitors in a 100-man tournament. So to make top 8 is very, very difficult. So here's what we have. In 8th place, Charles Barton, Seismitoad Giratina with Crawdaunt. 7th place, Sam Taylor with Seismitoad Giratina. 6th place, Corey Kirkham with Night March. 5th place, Carl Blake with Night March. Going into top 4, we had Alex Dow with Night March and Joe Bernard with Seismitoad Giratina, the same Joe Bernard who made top 8 with Skeptar the previous week. Go Joe. And check out his YouTube channel, Omnipoke. I don't just give random plugs for every YouTube channel on here. I give you plugs for good ones you should know about. This is one of them. And in the final, Luke Kirkham won with his Manectric Bats deck, taking down Camerupt. That's right. Charlie Powell got second at an incredibly competitive regional championship with Camerupt. So, outside of the final, the rest of top 8 were 3 Night March and 3 Seismitoad Giratina. They are the 2 decks to beat at the moment, ladies and gentlemen. They are the 2 best decks in the format, in standard as it goes. Now, the UK, we are talking about 100 people. Now, that doesn't make it less competitive, but it doesn't dilute the pool very much. So you do see trends forming in the UK slightly more easily than you do in the US, especially in situations where we don't have US results to essentially steal from. But they're both good. Night March, like I've said, these are, and I'm fairly sure they were all very similar builds. It's the build of Night March where, and I know you don't have Mew anymore, you don't need Mew. If you're hitting consistently with decent damage every turn, getting a big KO or 2 on an EX to round out the game, while ability locking your opponent every single turn, you're gonna be okay, ladies and gentlemen. It's gonna go all right. How do they make do with only 4 double colourless energies? I'm going to let you work that one out for yourself. Answers on a postcard or indeed to my email or Twitter. As for Seismitoad Giratina, it's just got good matchups across the board. It's got all the advantages of Seismitoad. It's got all the advantages of Giratina. Now, it really relies on double colourless energy, so it can be vulnerable. And, it's potentially easily countered. But not by stuff people are playing. Seismitoad just gets run through by Vespiquen. Remember, Seismitoad, you're always going to have 1 turn to set up before they get the train lock on. If you can get 5 Pokemon in the discard and a Muscle Band, you're 1-hit KOing Seismitoad for a DCE. Well, okay. But then Giratina comes in. And Giratina's one-hit KOing all of these Pokemon while stopping you using your DCEs that you're kind of relying on in these decks. And this is what the deck does. Against something like Night March, you can put the Seismitoad up to try and stall them, or you can put the Giratina up to stop them using the DCEs. Now, what is interesting about these Seismitoad Giratina decks is that they all play Energy Denial. Now, I told you that Charles Barton's played it with Crawdaunt. Now, I've seen other people play it with Crawdaunt, including John O'Cowley, who made top 8 with the Crawdaunt list last week. Very good list. He showed me to it. It's a wonderful list. But even without that, they're playing Crushing Hammer. They're playing Enhanced Hammer. They're playing Team Flagrant. They're playing Zerosic. They might not be playing all of them, but the theory is, not only am I going to train a lock you / lock you with Giratina, no special energy, no stadiums, no tools, but I'm also going to sit here and get rid of all your energy just in case you have a good start. It basically auto-wins your Groudon. It pretty much auto-wins Rayquaza, and it's just got general good matchups. There aren't many decks that can do well against him. In first place, we'll get to Camerupt in a minute. Clearly, he's a headliner of this week's podcast. In first place, Luke Kirkham with Manectric Bats. There's not much to say about Manectric Bats anymore, ladies and gentlemen. It's just plain good. Bats do what they've always done. They take cheeky prizes. They act as an emergency attacker against things like Lucario or Minechow or anything with which Manectric might struggle. And Manectric is just a really good, efficient attacker. Now, assuming it's the same or very similar list to what Luke's been playing for a little while, he isn't playing the Mega. And in fact, Luke's very similar list has been featured on the Norwich League Challenge that I uploaded to my YouTube fairly recently. So if you want to see Luke's Regionals winning deck in action, get yourself over. Now, I am doing Huddersfield Regionals games at the moment, but as soon as they're done, Sutton Coldfield Regionals games will be going up as well. So make sure you're on that, ladies and gentlemen. It's going to be funsies. So that brings us to Charlie Powell, who played Magma Camerupt, Camerupt EX, and Entei Double Delta. Now, I've just had a quick chat with Charlie, and I'll show you kind of the results of said chat in a minute. But first of all, let's have a quick look at this Camerupt thing. Now, if we start off with Camerupt EX, he takes 4 energy to attack. Now, that's not ideal, shall we say. However, it's a pretty gosh darn good attack. For 4 energy, you get to discard as many fire energy as you like, attached to any of your Pokemon, and it does 50 damage times the amount of energy you discard. That's pretty good. It basically means you can one-hit KO anything. How do you get the energy out? Let's not forget, ladies and gentlemen, that Blacksmith's a thing, a supporter that allows you to attach 2 fire energy to any of your Pokemon, so you can get it out that way. But you've also got the Double Crisis Camerupt, with the ability Burning Draft. Once during your turn, you may attach a fighting or fire energy from your discard pile to this Pokemon. You get 2 Camerupt out. That's 2 energy you get back every turn to discard and do some damage. Now, if you add this all up, what you can essentially do is every turn you can play a DCE and a Blacksmith to a Camerupt. Now it's attacking. Camerupt EX. 2 Camerupt on the bench. Use the ability of each of them. Discard those 4 fire energy, leaving the DCE on the active Camerupt, doing 200 damage and one-hit KOing an EX. That, ladies and gentlemen, is pretty gosh darn good. Now, of course, ability lock can, influence it. It's far from perfect. It's a kind of deck which maybe you could prepare for and it wouldn't, be the end of the world. But people apparently weren't preparing for it, and that's how people get lost. So that's a general theory of the deck. One interesting thing that Charlie chose to play was the Entei with the Double Delta Ancient trait. That's the one that allows you to put 2 of any 2 tools onto him rather than just the 1. And he's just an efficient non-EX attacker. Again, the Camerupt, you don't really want to be attacking with just the EX, but then you're rocking along with purely EX attackers. You want a non-EX attacker. How about Entei? 2 energy, 30 damage. During your opponent's next turn, any damage is reduced by 30. Not terrible. 4 energy, but you know, double colourless and blacksmith will do it. 130, flip a coin. If tails, it does 30 to itself. 130 HP on a basic ain't too bad. You can get it going in 1 turn. It requires a blacksmith and a DCE, but it's doable. And you put 2 muscle bands on, and you're allowed. Now you're hitting 170 on a non-EX Pokemon with decent HP that you can get going in a single turn. And I've always been a fan on this podcast of Pokemon that can get attacking in a single turn. Add it all up, you've got a pretty good attacker. So I sent Charlie a bunch. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to have a big conversation with Charlie yet, so I'm probably going to discuss this with him later, and I'll share any nice things next week. But I sent him a list of questions. Essentially, what was the general makeup of the deck? Was it just a standard one that people know? Why did you play Entei? And why did you play the deck at all? So, he makes a very good point. Is there really a standard Camerupt deck? And he's right, it hasn't seen any success. What I meant was it the general, okay, play the double crisis to get energy out, play blacksmith to get the energy out of the discard, and then Camerupt EX to attack. Don't forget, ladies and gentlemen, you can use things like Scorched Earth to draw cards while discarding energy that you can later recover with the Camerupt. He said the point of the deck is to play it turbo with tons of non-supporter draw because you want to be using blacksmith at every possible opportunity. You can power up every attacker in 1 turn through combinations of blacksmith or DCE or burning draft, that's the ability of Camerupt, which is great because stuff can come out of nowhere swinging for big damage without there being a chance for your opponent to really react. You can put up to 6 fire energy in play per turn through your turn's blacksmith and magma Camerupts, which means getting knockout turn in a row is very possible. Entei is great as a non-EX attacker for the deck and as something that can hit big damage without discarding energy, because sometimes you'll need that. With 2 muscle bands attached, it maxes out at 170, which gets knockouts on most relevant EXs and any, non-megas, and of course any non-EXs as well. And the first attack is useful for preventing damage. This is a play that a lot of people will miss. You can use in Entei's second attack, I'm talking as me now, not Charlie. You can use Entei's second attack as big damage, but sometimes your opponent's going to have, 30 or less HP. So you finish it off with Entei's first attack, and your opponent's got to do 160 to KO. Back to Charlie. He chose to play it because it seemed to have a good fit in the meta at the moment. Camerupt's 180 HP is hard to knock out in one attack by most things, but it can knock out anything. You can trade 1-for-1 against Vespiquen and Night March with Magma, Camerupt and Entei. You can weather Totina's Energy Denial with your constant recursion thanks to Blacksmith and Magma Camerupt. And since it has an overwhelmingly favourable matchup against Mega Skeptar, which won the previous regional, I figured it seemed like exactly the right time to play it, since there would mostly be there would most likely be at least a few people playing it. This is why Charlie's a good player. Not only is his theory entirely impeccable, but it works. His theory's good, but it went into practice well. It's got really good matchups against basically everything, and that makes it good. Camerupt is a deck I've been meaning to try out for a while. It is exactly my kind of unusual deck. Why I haven't played it up to now, I don't know. Chances of me playing it this coming week are incredibly slim due to owning 1 Camerupt DX, 0 cards from Double Crisis, and 0 Entei. I do, however, have a lot of Blacksmith and Fire Energy. Now, I've got something really stupid cooking for this weekend, so we'll see how stupid it turns out to be. I'm trying to work on something that can beat Night March and Seismitoad Giratina, but it's pretty much got terrible matchups against Mega EXs, Camerupt, etc. So, not 100% convinced it's going to work. But we'll see. You never know. Could surprise myself. So, this weekend I'm going to be at London Regional Championship on Saturday. I hope to see a whole bunch of you down there. And as if you haven't met me before, do come and say hello. And if you have, don't be rude. Come and say hello. As always, ladies and gentlemen, if you've got anything you want to discuss, argue with, add, make sure you tweet me at the Wassy or email me at ptcgradio.wordpress.com. And you can find a complete archive on ptcgradio.wordpress.com. Now, one thing that's very, very important, check out my YouTube. As I said on last week's podcast, I am putting up a lot of videos lately. We're talking pretty much daily videos now. And I might even, to get them all online before, because I don't really want to be putting non-breakthrough legal games after Breakthrough's legal. To get them all online, I might start have to doubling up and doing a couple in one day. So, if I'm going to be popping all these videos up, I would very much appreciate you watch them, you give them a quick like, and you subscribe if you haven't done already. We've broken 1,700 subscribers on YouTube this week. That's a number that makes me happy. It's pretty innocuous, to be honest. 2,000 would be better. So get a move on, people. It's weird, the regionals videos always go down so much better than League Challenge videos. Like the League Challenge videos, they're all... And actually, weirdly, once from a little while ago, they all hit 1,000. But the recent League Challenge videos have been rocking up around about 400 and then stalling a little bit when they get there. They'll get up to about 500. But since the regional videos, I've got about 15 new subscribers in the last day. And in less than a day, round 1 is up there at 400 views. Spoiler alert, ladies and gentlemen, round 2 is going to be going up basically now. Round 3 is ready to go, and as soon as I finish recording this, I'm going to lie down for a few minutes, recover my energy, and then I'm going to be recording the commentary for round 4. They're coming thick and fast. Check them bad boys out. Next week, I'm going to tell you about the third UK regional. We're going to see how the format is changing. I'll tell you about my stupid deck and whether it worked or not. And I will be back next week with all kinds of funness. As always, thank you very much for listening. Look after yourselves till next week. My name's Ross, and you've been listening to PTCG Radio.